This episode is brought to you by Google Pixel, the official fan phone of the NBA and WNBA. The new Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro are built different. How? Take the Audio Magic Eraser tool. It helps block out distracting crowd noise so your play-by-play commentary sounds crystal clear. The only phone engineered by Google brings out the audio you care about so your videos sound as crisp as they look. Learn more at googlestore.com/pixelnba. Audio Magic Eraser requires Google Photos app. May not work on all audio elements.
Hail cheaters! Welcome to the I Was Cheating Podcast. My name is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Happy post-Thanksgiving to you, Brandon. How are you?
Josh, I'm thankful for Ollie Watkins. Maybe I'm the only one on the planet who is thankful for a 5-pointer from a striker who's like sucking up $8 million of fantasy budget. But I'm gonna stand Ollie until the end of the season, I guess. Even though I missed his one blockbuster a week. But I think Ollie Watkins is a great player, and that speaks to the theme of today's episode, right, Josh?
Yeah. Although I would say that is a lukewarm to cold take. Ollie Watkins being a good player, but the theme of this week's pod, we're gonna talk a little bit about Game Week 14. We're gonna review Game Week 13 as well, but mostly what we're gonna do in this week's pod is to have 20 hot takes for all 20 Premier League teams, Brandon. So one take per team. Some of these takes are hot. Some of them are media. It's like that Hot Ones. You ever seen Hot Ones on YouTube? I know you have, Brandon. It's like Hot Ones on YouTube. You start off, you got a couple mild ones, and then you
That's
get
not so bad. This is kind of delicious, actually.
Exactly. And then occasionally you get Da Bomb. They throw that in there, right? And that's
Beyond
always
Insanity.
the hottest.
It's true.
Yeah. even though it's like the 7th one, right? It's like even though the other ones go higher on what's the scale again? Like there's some.
Oh yeah, it's what is that
scale,
ghost
right?
ghost pepper scale?
Whatever it is, right? So our takes will go up and down as we go in terms of total spiciness. But I think it'll be a fun way to break things up a little bit and just talk about fantasy from maybe a slightly different perspective. And I think a lot of people are looking for fun right now, Brandon, because
Scoville, by the way, the Scoville index.
That's right, Scoville, of course.
I couldn't let that one slip.
No, I know. I would have looked it up in a second, but I think it's we're not all necessarily having the most fun with fantasy itself. I've said before, and I'll say it again: the Premier League season has been enjoyable. I am enjoying myself. Like watching these matches has been a lot of fun. The Villa Spurs match was a wild game. Like a lot of different things.
Holy crap! That was like watching two 10-year-olds play FIFA. It was incredible.
It was great. It was all over the place. Son had, I think, 8 disallowed goals. It was just like all over the place, that match. It was a lot of fun. I thought the Liverpool-Man City match was pretty interesting as well. Maybe because the last game that we saw with Man City was that 4-4 thriller. The fact that it was 1-1 was maybe slightly disappointing, but I felt like there were lots of chances in that game. And I think Trent's goal was so good that I feel like it sort of redeemed what might have been a sort of like a if that had just been 1-0, I feel like that would have been kind of a slog of a fixture, right? Or we might have thought of it that way. But the 1-1 and then sort of the kind of frantic last 20 minutes or so as Man City tried to take the lead at the end. It was a very interesting match, and I think and great for the Premier League too, right? The fact that we have 3, it's so funny to me because Arsenal, I feel like almost none of their forward players are in any kind of form right now, and yet here they are, right? Top of the table, just kind of finding a way, which I think is really good for them because you have to think that at some point, Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, I don't think any of them are playing at their best right now. And so if they can start to click the way they did last season, and the defense, especially kind of anchored by Declan Rice at the moment, it's just so much better, right? It feels like they've really righted the ship there. So
certainly. If you're Dr. Ian Malcolm, I remember in Jurassic Park, he famously said, "Arsenal finds a way somehow."
He does,
I agree. I was texting with our friend Mike, who's a huge Arsenal fan, and I just told him, congratulations being top of the table. I'm somehow not inspired, I guess is the word I was going to use. You can't say you're not impressed, because to be top of the Premier League by any right is a phenomenal achievement. And I think it's just Arsenal and Arteta wrote a check that was quite large last season. It was like, give us an off season to improve on this and wait until you see what we have to show you then. And it's almost like Arsenal have skipped ahead to this uber pep period where they're improving in tactical ways that I can't even comprehend. And somehow a 1-0 victory this weekend is more impressive than a 3-0 victory was last season. And I'm actually not joking. I think that there is something to that where, Arsenal and Arteta are just trying to figure out how to make this plan and this club have some staying power.
Yeah, I think that's right, and that's not even a hot. Again, these are just good takes, Brandon. The hot takes is a hot take a metaphor for a bad take? I don't think it is necessarily, but it is. It's what is a hot take? Is like a take that's hard to argue against, right?
I think actually the opposite, right? Well, an emotional take, yes, but also I think a hot take is meant to be one that would provoke argument, because it is by nature controversial, because you're hopefully the first one to have it. A hot take should be original to some degree.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm definitely sick of saying things in this pod and then someone actuallying us in Twitter comments. So this is a good spot for us to be, I think. But maybe we should just do every pod from now on. It's just 20 hot takes every week.
Isn't that what it already is?
Pretty much. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Game Week 13 in the books. I finished on. Well, actually, no. I've got one more player to go. Still, I have Jedi Robinson playing tomorrow. Although if he had a minor injury and didn't come in, and Jamal Lascelles came in for me, that would be also fine. But I've got Robinson tomorrow, home to Wolves. I'm on 42 points, which does put me on a small red arrow. But hopefully, if I can even get 2 points from him tomorrow, that should be enough for me to basically like kind of toe the line. Right, like a gray arrow, maybe not a red or a green necessarily. Not a great week. 0 points from Matty Cash. One of the worst transfers I think I've ever made. I've got 0, 2, and 0 is what I've gotten from him the 3 weeks I've had him so far. So not ideal. Not a great transfer, especially when I was debating between him and Porro. And Porro is who hasn't been amazing either, but at least looks incredibly dangerous, right? Like Porro is everywhere. He's on all these free kicks, send it in crosses. I feel like Porro could have like a 20-pointer today.
Porro, the way he plays reminds me of watching Band of Brothers, and there's an unnamed character who actually pops up in multiple episodes, just like doing the dirty work, and you see him in the background doing the work, and you're like, he's a good soldier. I feel like that's Porro for Spurs right now. I think he's more important background character.
I think he's more high profile than I'd say. He's more like Colonel Spears, Brandon, a player who sort of.
You think initially... he's giving opposing opposition cigarettes before he just mows them down?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
That's crazy talk.
All right, the takes are getting hotter already. I like it. Douglas Luiz came through again. I mean, I sort of. It's funny how I spent a few weeks debating whether I even wanted to hold him, but ultimately I gone a lot better than Matty Cash. That's for sure. I've gotten 7-2-2-7. And those are the 4 returns.
227, a great sitcom from the late 80s, early 90s.
True.
Just became a great streak for Douglas Luiz.
Yeah, so that's 18 points, which is 4.5 points per match in the 4 weeks I've had him, which for a 5.5 million, I think I bought him at 5.5. He moved to 5.6 after I bought him. So for a 5.5 million midfielder, average 4.5 points is, I'm giving you the little okay sign. That is okay with me, because when he gets points, he tends to get bonus, which is often the case with central midfielders, right? Because they're involved in a lot of things. They complete a lot of passes,
lots of passing, lots of tackles, interceptions, etc.
Exactly. So he really came through for me. I had Watkins, Holland captain, which I suppose in the end he really was the best captain. You and I went back and forth on that a lot. We talked about it on our Patreon pod on Thursday. We both settled on Holland, and he ultimately finished with 5 more than Son, 2 more than Salah. So I think we'll take that as it's a minor win, but a win nonetheless.
Yeah, Holland was literally the best captain after everything was played. I will say those who went out on a limb and captain Son,
got pretty unlucky.
I do tip my hat to you.
Yeah,
You just caught Villa on a hyper disciplined day.
Yep.
And I would credit Emery and team for that. It was a
Yeah.
good call in the end to captain Son.
Yes. That's a good point. They held the line very well, didn't they? So, so in the end, 42 with one player to go. I'm not feeling like amazing, but it honestly could be a lot worse. And so I feel like, sure, fine, move on. How about you?
Well, I'm finishing on 37. I'm all out. I chose to bench Leno in favor of Areola. The Palhinha absence just kind of spooked me a little too much. We'll see. I assume Leno is going to match a 3-pointer from Areola. Hopefully it's just a wash in the end. But 37, just look at my game week rank from game week 12 and add a 0 to it. I was 700,000 game week rank last, and I'm 7 million game week rank in game week 13. So
and nowhere to go but down after tomorrow's match.
Yeah, it's true. So I feel like this is symptomatic of this season. I don't want to get down about the two-step. I feel like I'm two-step forward, one step back territory, as opposed to 3 steps, et cetera. So that's fine. Just looking at my squad, I agree. Like Matty Cash, I think I said it before on the pod, where his problem is he can't defend and he can't attack. He's caught somewhere in between, and sometimes it's literally that way on the pitch. He's got to be an immediate sell for anybody who has him. Taken out at halftime, I think the narrative is probably going to be something to do with injury, but he's just not fitting into this. He's not producing fantasy-wise, and I think if you're Emery, you look at him, you're like, I could get more from another player on my bench. Trippier 1-pointer, Gahey 1-pointer. Gahey is probably one of my biggest disappointments where we've got some takes about Luton coming up that might cause me to reassess this confidence, right?
You sort of took a short-term punt at him, right? It was Everton at home, Luton away, and you've gotten a total of 1 point from him. Oh, actually, no, you did get a clean sheet in the first match, didn't you? So that's at least something.
I got a 5-pointer against Burnley because he got a yellow card.
Clean sheets.
A muted celebration.
The 5-point clean sheet is such a bummer. It's really that one always stings a little bit because you're like, well, if you hadn't got the yellow, it's kind of like Watkins today, right? If you don't get the yellow, you're probably in the bonus, and what are you going to do?
And I will say, I brought Matt Cash in on a wild card, and it's been a long-term play. It's truly not worked out. My biggest, recency disappointment is Martinelli, who another 1-pointer against Brentford. This is just bad. It was a bad transfer, and now he's going to be that player I have in my squad every game week where I scratch my chin and say, well, maybe this week is his week.
Yeah.
Because he does have a brace in him.
Who are these people at the Always Cheating meetup who convince you to bring him in? Because he
won't name
wasn't
names
on your radar, and then suddenly you and I had 12 drinks, and you were like, oh yeah, I'm bringing in Martinelli. I remember at 1:00 in the morning, this came up, and
it was going to be him or Doku, and I'd be feeling great if I had a player like Doku who was just getting bonus points, like he was Kieran Trippier. Everything going against Trippier, yellow card, lost clean sheet, still gets bonus. But the number of successful take-ons Doku had in that match was incredible. But I am putting on my my list of people who are not getting Christmas cards this year. The people who kind of big upped Martinelli. That's fine. I mean, the real story with my team this game week is my bench, where I have 15 points already between Souček and my one transfer, which was Dan Burn to Lascelles. And I was like, okay, just Lascelles is just good investment, real estate property that maybe I'll never see in my lifetime, but it will grow in value. And what we're assured of, Josh, is that our investment in Lascelles will accrue capital. Will it get us fantasy points? Maybe not.
Yeah, we might get some. We should get some price rises, especially after you scored the goal. Yeah. I'm already kind of regretting. I mean, I don't mind having him, but I'm regretting the wasted transfer to a certain degree, just because I feel like I look at my squad right now and just looking ahead to game week 14, Brandon, my transfers. I'm sort of debating a couple of options. I think a big decision for me is whether Julian Alvarez starts at midweek in the Champions League. If he does, I think there's a chance I drop him ahead of game week 14. And the reason for that is I'm just not having a great season, and I just think I need to be a little more aggressive and just try some things. I don't really, I don't really. It's just like the idea of just holding the line week after week after week is starting to feel increasingly sort of less appealing to me. And so, someone like Dominic Solanke home to Villa, I think is a move I might consider. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could consider burning points and going for like a big move, like I don't really know.
Isak.
Yeah, Isak maybe. I wish I could I don't think I can go. Isak is slightly too expensive is the only problem. I can't move Isak without burning points. So I guess I could drop cash for a hit, which honestly would feel great. I think I'd love that. And then let's see.
Vindictive man.
I know. Let's run the numbers here. Okay, if I were to do that, I could bring in Isak, and then I would have 4.7 million. Oh, that's plenty of money, Brennan. That's plenty of money for another defender. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Isak. Let's see, home to Man United in 14, away to Everton in 15. Spurs, Fulham, Luton. Everyone always plays Luton within a couple of weeks, as we've firmly established. Yep. So yeah, I think he'd be up there. Isak, Solanke. Maybe I just hold my. I guess I could just not make a transfer again. Let's just go with that again. I just hold my. I'm 2 million over on. I'm just going to hold my transfer, Brandon. Just keep that powder dry. But I think there's maybe an argument for it because we have the midweek. So we have game week 14, which is coming up this weekend. I'm going to hold off on making any transfers because we've got Champions League on Tuesday and Wednesday, Europa League on Thursday. As we've mentioned before, a lot of Premier League teams are across. I think it's 6 clubs across Europe. Maybe it's 7. It's so quite a number are playing in.
Pretty sure
European
it's 7 if you look at the Conference League as well. Villa, yep. Brighton, West Ham,
plus the 4 Champions League
plus teams. 4 Champions League teams. Yep.
Yeah. So 7 teams all playing in Europe at midweek. So it just seems like a really good time to wait until at least Thursday evening, if not Friday morning, to make a transfer. So I'm going to hold off on making any moves until then. But if Alvarez starts at midweek, because there was already a chance that he was, depending on who you believe, but it sounds like maybe if Grealish had been healthy, that he would have started this weekend, and Alvarez may have come off the bench just because of the European, South American commitments that he had.
They play Grealish in the middle of the park? Because Doku's going to be on the wing.
I think it would have been Foden, perhaps, or maybe they would have played Grealish through the middle. I don't know. There was one of those classic leak situations, right? Okay. I don't know. And then it was like, but then Grealish was ill, so Alvarez came in and played. But Alvarez
ill in a bad way, not ill in a Beastie Boys kind of way.
Yeah, he was too cool to play in this match, unfortunately. So I don't know. I mean, I think so depending on who plays at midweek, that may affect my transfer decision, because what I would like is a player who's going to play twice for me. Once in game week 14 and then again in game week 15. So if someone like Alvarez plays at midweek, I think there's at least a risk that he doesn't play at the weekend.
Yeah, he's just been, well, I won't spoil the hot takery that's about to happen about Alvarez, but we've got more, there's more meat on that bone to pick at.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that we do have game week 18 blank coming up for Brentford and Man City, so you can make an argument for moving a little early.
There's no way Alvarez survives game week 18 in anybody's squad, I would suggest. So I agree. It's kind of a question of when, not if.
And then I guess the other thing to consider is like 20 other Premier League squads. Man City does play Luton in 3 weeks, so that is the other.
Where did Luton have the time? This is incredible. It's like
I don't know. They play 3
How
times.
How many Lutons are there? Is this Luton United or Luton Wednesday?
I never understand how Luton is always the next fixture for every single Premier League club. But that is, Man City does play Luton in game week 16. So that is, I guess, something to consider there as well. I would say that Alvarez out would fall into the luxury transfer category. And I would probably look at making a different move first. I mean, you could risk Brazilian Gabriel, or I guess they're both Brazilian.
Which one?
Gabriel not Martinelli, Margalles. I never know how to say
Margulies.
Yeah, Juliana Margulies. Or maybe Zinchenko. If you could get there, he'd be the other option, I think, for Arsenal. So anyway, those are the moves that I'm considering. What are you thinking about for your game week 14 squad?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm actually looking at if Cash is fit, and I'm not saying that he would start for Villa against Bournemouth. I will have a fully fit 15 players, which is great. Kabore
Okay.
coming back from concussion protocol.
Yep.
Where are my weakest points? I still have triple West Ham, and it's just driving me insane. Now I have to, concede. Ward Prowse got me 11 points last week, but the fact that I keep benching goals from Souček is kind of driving me crazy. And why is Souček
Yeah.
being blocked by James Ward Prowse? So I really do want to get rid of one of these West Ham guys, and Ward Prowse to Mbomo is probably the best on paper,
Yeah.
numbers wise, move that I can make.
Who did Brentford play in game week 14?
Brentford are. That was a setup. It was a setup, folks. Brentford are home hosting Luton Town FC. So how do they do it? How do they? They can't. The Premier League can't keep getting away with this. Making Luton play all 20 teams in the league. This is insane. Oh, the 19 others, I should say. But anyway, so I kind of feel like Ward Prowse to Mbomo, but again, like you, we're basically a couple points apart at this point. Why am I trying to do the chalk move? I need to excite the base. I need to make some moves. The problem is Mbomo's kind of awesome, and I kind of want to have Mbomo.
Mbomo is awesome. I think that's another, but I think another reason to be a little aggressive. I'm sort of with you there. It's like someone like Solanke, just because they've got a nice run in their next 4. They play Luton in game week 17, so there's just a lot of Luton coming up for all the players that I'm considering, and Luton aren't even that bad. And we're going to keep spoiling all our takes here, Brandon, but we need to quit. I think it's just because Luton is a funny word to say. I think that's really the source of it. Luton is just it's like a word that no one in America had heard until this spring. It's like new to all of us.
So in America, for those outside of the country, if you're from the South, you drop your G's, right? So instead of saying I'm going somewhere, you're going somewhere. And I feel like Luton is suffering from this dropping of G's. If they were Looting Town, we would take them more seriously, but they're Luton Town. It's sort of like they're gunslingers from West Texas.
Yeah, I like that looting town. Like they're like a collection of like Jesse James and the boys, right? Looting town.
Yeah, we're taking over this here locomotive and give us all your necklaces and pocket watches.
Oh, that's good
stuff.
I
took that role playing a little too far.
Well, your middle name is Shane, right? When you named after
Cowboys are in my blood.
Yeah, exactly. And you were named after the Shane from the. You were right. You were named after the Shane from the book in the.
No, I wasn't. I wish I was, but when I was growing up, I thought Shane. I didn't like Shane as a middle name, and then I think it was the 7th grade, I read Shane the book, and then subsequently watched the film, and I was a total convert. I was like, well, Shane is the greatest name on planet Earth. Maybe I should make it my first name.
Everyone should give their kid a weird middle name, right? I'm Dale. It's kind of the same thing, right? You don't see a lot of Dales anymore.
Yeah, so you were named after the Chippendales.
I was. I thought
the male stripping club.
I thought so until I found out it was my grandpa. But I later went to a Chippendales, Brandon, and I was. I
met your mom. Your mom likes a good time. I mean, I'm sure she would be.
That's true. My mother has I'd say I don't know this, but I would say there's at least an 80% chance she has been to a male strip club at some point. All right. Well, anyway, all right. So if you would like to support the podcast. We are back. Total chaos with Thanksgiving and the UK trip. We did drop a pod late last week, and we did as a video too. This is increasingly we're going to be doing more video content for Patreon supporters than kind of in general. And just a reminder that if you want to listen to the pod on YouTube, you can do that now. So that is now, maybe you are right now, but I know those numbers are still pretty low because we just really never talk about it. But we have added the page. The podcast is now on audio only at the moment on Patreon or on YouTube. So But regardless, if you want to support the podcast, say thank you to the cheaters. Maybe you've had a little Christmas bonus, and this is a chance for you to spread the love around. I don't know, whatever it is. If you want to say thank you to the cheaters, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating, support the podcast, any pledge level. Much appreciated. You get access to the Discord, an extra podcast each week. And we're going to start doing more interviews too. This is kind of a new, this is something that's been requested from Patreon supporters too. And so it's a big goal for us over the festive fixtures to kind of reset a little bit some of our Patreon stuff. So once again, patreon.com/alwayscheating is where you can go. Thank you to our newest Patreon supporters, producer Eric Kite. He's been a producer for a few weeks, Brendan. The Patreon, just like the whole formatting is like a little different than it used to be. And
the UI is foobar, I would suggest.
Yeah, exactly. I think on the like customer facing end, it looks pretty much the same as before, but on the back end, it's been chaos. So thank you to Eric Kite, and sorry we missed some producer thank yous for you a couple weeks ago, and also Ronald Gnarly. I hope that's his real name. I doubt it, but Ronald Gnarly, great name. And thank you for supporting the podcast as well. Brendan, let's take a quick break and we're going to do our hot takes for all 20 Premier League teams.
This episode is brought to you by Chevrolet. Now's your chance to support a team with real grit. The Chevy ZR2 family of off-road trucks. The first ever Silverado HD ZR2 joins the all-new Colorado ZR2 and the Silverado ZR2 for a commanding lineup of off-road ready trucks. Equipped to take on anything this season throws their way. Visit Chevy.com to learn more.
Maruchan superfans are everywhere. From the busy moms who want to deliver maximum flavor in a flash to dorm room diners who want to put some slurp in their step. There are a ton of copycats you could use, but if you want to bless your bowl, there's only one true Maruchan. Whether you choose instant lunch, ramen bowls, yakisoba, or restaurant quality gold, Maruchan is the only ramen worth obsessing over. Smiles for all. Maruchan. See what all the ramen hype is about at maruchan.com.
This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Some things are just better together, like party playlists and Friday nights, campfires and ghost stories, peanut butter and chocolate. And Reese's Cups are the perfect combination of creamy peanut butter and delicious milk chocolate. So, when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Buy Reese's today wherever candy is sold.
The holidays are coming. Find a gift for someone special with jewelry from Blue Nile. Right now, Blue Nile is offering special Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals. Save up to 50% on the season's most stunning trends. Blue Nile offers an endless selection of bold gold styles, gemstone jewelry, and classic diamond pieces. And now, for a limited time, get 36 months special financing on minimum purchases of $1,000. Restrictions apply. See BlueNile.com for details. That's BlueNile.com.
All right, Brian, we're back. 20 hot takes for 20 Premier League squads. Going in table order here, Brandon. So not alphabetical, but table order. That way, as people stop listening, as we get longer to the podcast, those are the takes for some of the bottom table clubs, Brandon. So, we got
the best takes, though. Some of the best.
That is true. Stick around. That is true. But, we got, one must always consider SEO, Brandon, right? Is there audio SEO? I don't really know. Is there like do you get listens based on the things you talk about at the start of a pod? It feels like Spotify might hunt in there.
My phone is listening to everything that we're saying right now as we do this live.
Yeah, that's true. If you mention like steak knives right now, you will get an Instagram ad for steak knives, and then within 30 minutes, yeah, exactly. If you get one later, you gotta screenshot that.
I will share.
All right. Here we go. Arsenal kicking things off here. Top of the table. Congrats to them, by the way. I feel like you were slightly muted in your praise earlier of them, but I think all things considered, they have gutted it out without probably playing their best. And I think for them to be top of the table is super impressive.
Yes.
They've played a bunch of teams as well already. It's not like they've, sort of
beat
taken
Man City.
Advantage of a. Yeah, exactly. So they've done, they've done really well. It's just, I think it's like you said, they haven't been as explosive of late, and I think we've seen that with even Saka is sort of not quite right. I mean, he got the late assist in that. What a crazy game that was, the Saturday match. It was sort of like I mean, I guess it was a little bit like the Everton Man United game today, where it just felt like a draw might have been a more fitting result in some ways, right? But in
What do
the
you
end,
think?
Arsenal picked it up.
Pre hot take, but just a prelude to hot take. 60 million worth it for Kai Havertz?
Well, I don't know anymore. I mean, because I suppose, like, you kind of need someone good enough to come in and play a bunch of different positions. He's like a utility player, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can
He's
put
a
him
floater.
in.
You used to be this at an
I
old
did
job, a
15
floater.
plus years
You were
ago.
like
I
the
was
Kai Havertz of New York City.
Yeah, and I suppose there is. I don't know what that price is, but there is something to be said for a guy who can play as a central midfielder, as an attacking mid, as a forward if need be. Now, granted, he doesn't do any of these very well, much like me when I was doing those roles, Brandon. But you can do them. But anyway, our take is this: I think that Alexander Zinchenko, I said it correctly in my head at least. Alexander, but with the O, Zinchenko will end up as Arsenal's highest scoring defender. So at the moment, he is third for Arsenal defenders. He is 8 points behind Saliba, 1 point behind White. And my reasoning is basically that he has a lot of attacking. I think he's sort of gone through some of the worst of what happened with his injuries, right? And tough start to the season.
His home country being,
the chaos of his home country, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Which unfortunately, that obviously continues, but has reasserted himself in the left wing spot. I mean, Timber is out for the season, so there's really no great risk there. So there aren't really a lot of challengers to him in that left wing position, especially once the Champions League concludes, which it will in a couple of weeks. So I think. Picked up a goal in game week 12, got the 3 bonus points in game week 13. I just feel like he's starting to come into form. And just, again, this is a player who, had a 4 assist season a couple of years ago for Manchester City. He's a player who plays even further forward for his home country, for Ukraine. And I just think that there's a lot of attacking potential that has not quite been unlocked for him in this squad. And I think part of it too is that I still don't totally trust Ben White's attacking instincts. Saliba really has no attacking potential. Gabriel is still a little bit of a rotation risk, I would say. And even White, right? Even White could possibly play centrally again, and you could, once again have Partey out there on the right hand side. So Thomas Partey on the right hand side. So I think for those reasons, if I were picking an Arsenal defender right now, if I was on a wild card or I was just looking to make a transfer, like Matty Cash, for example, he's 5.1. I think is he 5? Yeah, 5.1 right now. So Matty Cash is 5.1. I think Cash to someone like Zinchenko is a kind of high upside move that you could really look at. And I just don't think he is. I guess the reason this is more than just a lukewarm take is I don't think he's at the top of the list when it comes to transfers. I think that, if anything, he might be 4th on many people's list in terms of who they consider for an Arsenal defender. And that, I think, is part of what makes him appealing to me, is if you're looking to be a little bit different. And I just think there's outside of Saliba, and I suppose I'd throw White in there, even though he has been a little bit injured the last couple of weeks. So they came on very late as a sub. In the Arsenal match. I just think that if you're looking to be a little bit different and you want a little bit of attacking potential, that I think Zinchenko is the one.
I agree with this take. I think inside all FPL managers, there are 2 wolves. There is the Saliba wolf and there is the Zinchenko wolf. And you and I are in the position where we really need to embrace our Zinchenko wolf. And you saw this, I think it was in really the late winter, early spring of last season, where Zinchenko put his attacking form together with some clean sheets and a good run of starts for Arsenal. He's coming into that now. I think the time is right. And with Ben White injured, like Tomiyasu can only play on one side at a time. So I think like where Zinchenko was uncertain of starts just a couple of weeks ago, suddenly that narrative has been flipped on its head. So I really like that. And I think it is telling with Arsenal where the hot takes have to go to their defense right now, because I mean, God bless anyone who can come up with a take on the attack, because it is so confusing from a fantasy perspective. Like,
it's hard to have
going to be the one.
Yeah. It's hard to have a fun take right, with the attack. Because
Saka is really the only take one could have, and that's a cold slice of bologna right there as far as Arsenal takes go.
All right, let's move on then. Man City. The take here is a sad one. Probably getting less hot as the weeks go on. Because I'm a huge fan of him as a player in general. But I think fantasy wise, it's finally time to say goodbye to Julian Alvarez. And talked about this at the start of the pod. It is still in the luxury transfer category, right? He is not a must drop by any means at all. But he's just where he plays. He's on some many free kicks, although he competes with Bernardo Silva for those. He's on some corners, but it's Erling Haaland's team, right? I mean, he's the one who scores the goals, and
it's Doku's team.
It's Doku's team increasingly as well, right? And Alvarez just sort of feels like this guy who's he's involved in things, but it's like in hockey, he's like the assister to the assister, right? It's like he's sort of.
He's not helped by his haircut and his just very sort of like non-playable character sort of vibe.
Yeah,
I often lose him on the pitch, and when he has the ball, I'm just like, who is that? Is that Alvarez? Can you show me the back of his shirt so I can figure it out? So it's like that.
He's got such a clean cut. He's got such a clean cut look. I think it makes him especially likable. But again, it's 4 blanks and 6. And even that Chelsea in the 4-4 Chelsea game, right? It's just the 1 assist for him there. But 3 blanks in 4, and 2 of those were home matches. I'm just not feeling hugely enthusiastic, right? I mean, they've scored 5, 11, 14, right? So Man City have scored 14 goals in the last 4 matches. Okay. And across those 14 goals, you have 1 assist from Alvarez, right? That's it just highlights, right? No goals, 1 assist across 14 goals for Man City.
And he's playing. It's not like he's not playing.
Yeah. 86 minutes, 70 minutes, 78 minutes, 90 minutes. So you're not even talking about a match where he came on as a sub late or he was pulled at 45. These are all matches where he had enough to qualify for the appearance bonus. So and like the numbers kind of bear it out too, right? I mean, it's 0.12 XG, 0.06, 0.15, 0.23. Again, these are just in the last 4 weeks, but even even his XA, right? The amount of assists created is 0.15, 0.96. He did get an assist in one of the matches.
In Chelsea.
In Chelsea. Although interestingly enough, that actually isn't the one where he got the big XA, 0.09 in that one, and then it was the Bournemouth match instead, and then 0.26 for Liverpool. So barely 1 XA, like less than half of 1 XG. Again, we're just looking at the Premier League here, but he has been kind of getting rested in the Champions League, right? He's been sort of he's been like a Premier League specialist of sorts this season, and Man City are doing fine. I don't really blame him for the 2 draws. I mean, I don't know how you could, right? I mean, the draw with Liverpool. I mean, Pep, to his credit, kind of came out afterwards and was like, it was a good game. We did the things I wanted us to do, and Trent has scored a great goal, and I thought that was really impressive of him, that he sort of, because that honestly feels accurate. It's like there's very easily a version of that match where Man City just win, right? And
I think if you're actually Pep, if you're the real Pep and not press conference Pep, you think, why did City not score 3 or 4 goals in that match? Because you understand that City are always going to concede, and they're 100% going to concede to a team like Liverpool. So, and then you can't take anything away from the Trent goal. I agree, but City just need to score more.
Are we back, by the way, and just captaining Haaland every single week again? Is that like there's just no getting around it anymore? Like it's kind of hard to argue.
Well, it was
14
I think
goals in the season.
That's why you underline the City Liverpool match from the weekend, because you put the 2 captaincy choices head to head, and you got to see what their games were about in the same time frame. And Haaland showed us it's just super direct, and that's it. And Salah, it's just a little bit more convoluted at this stage of Liverpool's evolution. There's less counterattacking happening from Liverpool, and Salah just has to be more creative. So, I mean, he points to Salah for actually having more fantasy points than Haaland at this stage of the game. But I agree. I think I'm assured of putting the armband on Haaland. He will be the bus team captain always, at the very least.
100%. By the way, people are still. We need to I guess we need to lean into the bus team thing more often. I can't believe how often people still ask what a bus team is, right? It's like on Twitter all the time. It still comes up. And, just as a reminder, this is an old joke that you and I used to have on the podcast that sort of took off and entered the FPL lexicon. Basically, the idea was, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I want to have my team all ready to go. And in case I fall into an unfortunate short-term coma.
It's not a fatal bus accident. Never.
Yeah. Exactly. Not a fatal bus accident ever. But I don't want to be caught short with my lineup that weekend. And so you got to set that bus team. So anyway, all right. So let's move on from Man City to Liverpool, who we were just speaking about. And my hot take here is honestly kind of the inspiration for today's pod, which is basically that Darwin is only a good player, but Liverpool need him to be great. And I think this is the central problem for Liverpool right now, is that Darwin is almost... you can even say he's very good. I don't know. You can say whatever you want. He's quite good, but he is not great. And his lack of greatness is probably going to cost Liverpool a serious title run this season. I mean, they're only 1 point, I guess they're 2 points back, because I think they're a point back of Man City and 2 back of Arsenal. But it just doesn't feel like they're going to score enough, right? They're not going to quite get there, and they're going to draw some matches that they could win, maybe lose some matches where they could draw. And I just felt like we saw that again in the match yesterday, which is a couple times where Darwin just got like a little crazy. It's like he kind of like, I don't know what happens with him. It's like sees red or whatever it is, but it's like he sort of gets in the box and he kind of just. It's like he's completely instinctive, right? And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad, but he's not always the most strategic player.
Yeah, it's to compare him to other players is kind of strange, because Ollie Watkins immediately comes to mind as a player who draws some ire, particularly from fantasy managers, where you're like, missed an open chance, like this guy's a donkey, that sort of thing. However, Watkins is taking far more chances, to my mind, than Darwin is. Would Darwin be a different player if you were to move him to Fulham, for example? Like, speaking of a team who has no actual striker right now, is it the setup with Liverpool? Because he's scoring relatively consistently for Uruguay when he travels abroad. But I don't know if it's really the pace of the Premier League that his brain can't keep up with it. It's like I don't want to be it's like I don't want to say anything negative about him, because I like to watch him play, right? But it's like it does feel like he loses his cool a little bit or something, right? In these big moments, because I don't know that you can even blame the Liverpool setup, because it feels like he's getting the ball in the box in positions to score, and it's just sort of not quite. So I don't know. It just feels Darwin is like, here it is. Darwin is like a movie that you watch the first half of it and you're like, wow, is this going to be one of the greatest movies I've ever seen? And then the second half of the movie is totally loses you and kind of sucks. And then
it's one of those
you talk with your friend about like
movies or something. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's always like clear to you, if you were to make these tweaks to the script or shoot it this way, it would be a great movie. It seems so obvious with Darwin what would make him a great player. Turns out it's just not that easy.
No, it's like you basically want to give him like Roberto Firmino or even Cody Gakpo, right? Like if he just had like Firmino or Cody Gakpo's brain, right? He'd be like absolutely brilliant, right? Because it's like
I'm not sure if I don't know if I wonder if for Darwin it's not about him thinking more. Like look at Sergio Aguero, like his innate finishing ability, his innate understanding of where this giant goal mouth in front of him is. Yep. And is it maybe Darwin is the smartest guy on the pitch at all times? I have no idea. There is an innateness, I think, I don't know. Too. If he's playing really
if he's playing 5-dimensional chess, that it's not helping Liverpool enough. I'll say that much. All right, so that's I think we're going to get some heat for that one, Brandon. But it's just
bring it on.
Liverpool
look great, all things considered.
They do. It's kind of like Arsenal. These are all qualified things, right? Like, but it sort of But why not? You're at the top of the table. It's we're like they're obviously doing great because we're talking about them a lot.
Hey, you stop improving, you stop winning. That's all we're suggesting.
Exactly. It's true of the always. It's as true of the Always Cheating podcast as it is of the Premier League table. All right, Brandon. Aston Villa. We've got two lukewarm takes here that will combine into one hot take. All right, how's that? Yours is maybe a little hotter. Mine is that Douglas Luiz is the rare central midfielder who might be a long-term FPL hold. Right. So generally speaking, central midfielders are not the kind of players that you want outside of like a really nice run of fixtures, outside of kind of famously Yaya Toure. But in general, like these kind of box to box players are not great fantasy assets. But 5.5 million, 5 goals, 2 assists on free kicks, on some corners. I have been debating what to do with him. And I think after today, I just thought, he's just creating chances constantly. And that assist was absolutely brilliant. I know you were doing some traveling today, but yeah, great, amazing ball, right?
It was a free kick. He basically just leathered it into the box.
Beautiful arc to it. And I love goals like this. Like some of my favorite goals to watch. Like Dominic Calvert-Lewin used to specialize in those. Like those kind of. He actually scored one very similar to that at I can't remember if it was at Wembley or at the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but it was another. I think it was from Dean. Actually, this is like 5 years ago. Anyway, so that's I like Luiz. There's your warm take, and here's your bonus hot take, Brandon.
My bonus hot take is Unai Emery is just as good a manager as Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, my winter jacket.
Josh's eyebrows just were burned off of his face. Yeah. Now, the Spurs Villa match was incredible viewing because, as I had said, it was like watching two 10-year-olds play FIFA. But it was also two managers who were both totally devoted to their setup. And Emery was persisting with this high line, and Ange was like, I know you're going to play this high line, and I'm going to, every ball that we kick is going to be to exploit that and to try to get behind it. And it was also like incredible discipline from Aston Villa to keep the offside trap going. Unai has to get the edge over Ange just based on that like head-to-head matchup today, as we record on Sunday. So, I mean, this is not a hot take insofar as people have respected what Unai Emery has been doing at Aston Villa, but there is that flavor of Arsenal Unai Emery where everyone's like, this guy's kind of like cool. You can do it at Villa, but could you do it like at a top 4 side in the Premier League? I would not be surprised to see in a few years' time Unai Emery managing a favored Aston Villa top 4 side.
Yeah. Or moving on to like a Man City type squad. Could you see that? Like moving.
I don't know.
He was an Arsenal manager previously.
So maybe it's like the perfect home for Unai Emery because when he went to Arsenal, that it was just like too big of a club. Well, that's going to be problematic the way that's phrased, but he just couldn't put the squad together. And Villarreal was where he really kind of came back into his own. Yeah. And it's these squads like Villarreal and Aston Villa where it's not filled with a bunch of like, superstars. You know what I mean? So maybe that's his wheelhouse. And he needs to stay away from Man City.
There's something to be said for that, right? It's like the old oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name now. The Leeds manager, Bielsa.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Sometimes there is kind of like a level that where a manager kind of shines. I mean, it's funny because Bielsa and is such a different manager than Unai Emery, but similar idea perhaps there. Well, now that we're just trashing Ange Postecoglou, Brandon, our next take is about Spurs and Ange, and I it sort of ties in with the with defense. So that's our FPL connection here, Brandon, or defense, if you will. Defense is how we say it in America. We say defense with 3 or 4 E's in it, Brandon. When I say defense with my Midwestern accent, there's definitely 4 E's.
Defense.
Yeah. Defense.
I always just say defense.
Yeah. As soon as I hold up a D and a picture of a fence, right? That's the
incredible stuff.
Cheer my team on. Yeah. But is Ange the second coming of Ralph Huizenhutel or Maurizio Sarri? Now that's not an either or thing, but is he one of these managers? Is he kind of all? Is it just going to be wild swings all the time? Are we looking at which is not even say. I'll throw Bielsa in there too. Bielsa, Sarri, Huizenhoodle. If anything, I mean, if it's Sarri and Bielsa, maybe we need to drop the Huizenhoodle, Brennan, because that almost feels. That might be too hot, actually. That might be absolute. What's the opposite of absolute zero? Absolute heat. I don't know.
I think this is why the take works is Hasenhüttl, because and Hasenhüttl got done at Southampton by Ange's team, by Spurs, where they did the 9-0 or whatever it was, because Hasenhüttl was like, no, we're going to play the high line. This is how we're going to do it. That was Ange against Chelsea 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I think that the correlation is 100% there. The positive thing you would say about Postecoglou is there's something else to it. Hasenhüttl basically had a diagram. It was like he was doing a dot to dots. He was copying off of somebody's playbook. I don't think Hasenhüttl really knew where to take it beyond just setting the team up. And Postecoglou understands, here's the tactics, here's the setup, here's also the man motivation. Here are like a modest amount of in-game tactics with substitutions and all that stuff. I think Ange is a phenomenal manager, but I think he's going to be brutalized by the shift from could Spurs win the league to, okay, now reality check. This is the way it was always going to be. It was always going to be a gradual thing for Ange at Spurs. I think it will come good. But I think the prospects are better than Hasenhüttl at Southampton.
By the way, Brandon, I think that's a good. I think that's a hot take. I got sucked into looking at a quick Quora article about the opposite of absolute zero, and the opposite of absolute zero, Brandon, is infinity, because infinity represents all energy in the universe put together, because energy equals heat. So
we should get Oppenheimer on this podcast at some point.
I was not expecting that, because absolute zero isn't even, it's cold, but it's, it's like,
we can take
it. I'd be fine. But infinite heat, that does seem, I don't know if I could take that. That might be, that's hotter than like Arizona in the summer, Brandon. That's very, very hot. All right. So what's a bonus take? Oh, the bonus take for Spurs, just to give them just to lighten the mood here a little bit, is that I think that Vicario may actually be the best goalkeeper in the Premier League now.
Here. Agreed.
Yeah. Big fan of him. That's just a fun take, a bonus fun take. Manchester United, Brandon. Here's your hot take.
Zero take. Holy shit.
Absolute zero take. The Manchester United is that it is time to look at Harry Maguire for your defense.
Whew. Bam! I mean, there's your take. Yeah, like get your little twigs and marshmallows and roast them over that burning hot take. But honestly, you're not wrong. He's dirt cheap. How much is he? How much does he cost?
He's 4.3 million. He has 4 clean sheets in the last 6 matches. Not really giving you any kind of goal over assist threat, but again, 4 and 6, and including 3 consecutive clean sheets. Got a bonus point in game week 11. 2 of those are away matches as well. So I think, I think you've got to give them some credit. Now, granted, what makes this extra hot is that they literally had a 2.73 xG against today. So in a normal situation, Everton probably should have scored 3 goals. But you know what? They didn't, Brandon. Scoreboard don't lie.
Scoreboard don't lie.
Scoreboard says 4.3 million defender just got another clean sheet.
It's a totally mixed bag with fixtures coming up for Maguire too. Away at St. James Park against Newcastle in game week 14, which good luck. Harry Maguire's getting -2 points in that match would be my prediction. Chelsea home, who knows? Bournemouth home, carry on, Mr. Maguire. Liverpool away, West Ham away, Villa, Forest. I mean, if you're looking to get rid of the likes of Kabore or Bell or some other last midfielder on your bench, there's probably no better place to look than Maguire right now.
Yeah, defender. I think you said midfielder, but yeah, defender. Yeah, I
Yes.
agree. I mean, we'll see how my little experiment goes with Fulham defenders tomorrow. I'm sort of taking again, one of these kind of slightly risky punts that we talked about. I mean, they actually do have the third best clean sheet shots. By the time you listen to this pod, we probably already know how well or poorly that transfer worked out. But even without Polina, they were near the top there. So, all right, Brandon, let's move on to. By the way, I'm actually surprised that Manchester United have sneakily moved into sixth place above Newcastle. That's sort of
They're like the form team in the Premier League right now.
I know we sort of have this idea of them as being this huge disappointment this year, but I mean they're in sixth now, only one win back of Spurs and Villa. All right, so the next one is Newcastle United, and our take is this: Isak is going to be the most important fantasy asset throughout the festive. Wow, let's try that again, Brendan. Isak is going to be the most important fantasy asset throughout the festive fixtures. So I'm counting that basically starting the next weekend, which is when December kicks off. It'll be Saturday. Will be December 2nd through game week 20, which is when the run of tightly packed fixtures conclude. So Isak's back. Wilson is out. Isak scored in the Chelsea match. What else do you want to say about Isak, Brandon?
Well, the fixtures are great. As mentioned, home Manchester United this coming weekend. Then it's Everton, Spurs with totally misaligned defense right now. Fulham, Luton, Forest, and most importantly, it is Luton in game week 18 when City and Brentford have that blank. So you're
always there for us.
Looting Town.
Town.
Yeah, and they'll cap off the festive period with a difficult away match at Anfield in game week 20. But fair play, Isak. I'll be watching that Newcastle team closely with their Champions League fixture midweek because they're in really behind the eight ball in their European group right now. And I would expect Isak to play. I would love to see Isak play well and come off at the 65th minute. That's what I want.
Yeah. The other take we could throw in there too is that Anthony Gordon is a lot better than he looks. There's something Anthony Gordon does not look. He does not. I'm not saying he's a bad looking person or whatever, but he just does not cut the figure of like a super awesome athlete winger type, right? Like just I don't know what it is about his kind of like he looks kind of scrawny. I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not being lookist here or whatever, but it's just like the impression you get from him is that he looks like Steve Rogers in Captain America before he got the totally. Power up, and yet he has been terrific. So to
watch him play though tells a different story. I think when he's on the ball, he looks very. I mean, ball
like
don't
David
lie,
Beckham's
again.
father, Brandon. I nag in order to praise. Okay, I'm breaking him down so I can build him back up. All right, let's move it on to Brighton here. Here's my hot take for Brighton, Brandon. I don't think that Brighton will keep a clean sheet the entire 2023-2024 season. Entire season. Okay, they're 0 for 13 so far, and I don't know where that clean sheet's going to come from. They can't keep a clean sheet against anybody, and it's not even close. And now that they've got Dunk suspended for a couple weeks, they've got Stupinan out indefinitely, Webster is out, Igor is out. It's like a
not Igor.
Not Igor. Exactly. Solly March is out. Matoma's out. And again, I'm not saying that like these, obviously where I'm talking about midfielders and forward players here, but those players being out also means that they're not going to be able to kind of put the, sort of be on the aggressive quite as much as they like, right? Which is only going to make them kind of more exposed. So, I really am. I'm very worried about this Brighton defense. It feels like the De Zerbi is sort of, he had the great celebration, went out there even kind of joked about it afterwards, right? Like he ran out there like they won the Champions League. But I think they're still going to be incredibly fun to watch.
He was going to get fired if they lost that game. I mean, that would be my hot take.
About that. Would have been 3 draws. They haven't even lost since game week 9. But it's just a frustrating
when that first Forest goal went in, I was like, man, things are going in the very wrong direction for Brighton now compared to where they were a couple months into the season. And
that is true.
Is De Zerbi about to enter his Marco Silva era or something like that? But he pulled it out of the bag.
Yeah. Burnley game week 16. There's your test, Brandon. If they don't keep a clean sheet there, I don't know if they're getting one.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
And yeah, again, I'm talking whole season. I don't mean the calendar year 2023. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's keep moving here. West Ham. This one's spicy, Brandon. I think there's an explanation that we can use for this as well, though. But here we go. Thomas Souček is at least 80% as good a fantasy asset as Cole Palmer.
Wow.
What do you think about this?
Yeah, I love this take. And as somebody who owns both Souček and Cole Palmer, and Souček is always on my bench and Cole Palmer is always playing, usually it works in my favor. Well, actually, it's like 50% of the time it works in my favor and 50% of the time it doesn't.
50% of the time it works, 100% of the time.
And the only reason it's not going in Souček's favor is because of penalties, which are, hard to replicate week in, week out. Are these set pieces that Souček is scoring off of? I mean, I think Souček's set piece goal, or it wasn't a set piece goal, but the cross from Kudus was on par with Douglas Luiz de Pau Torres, an incredible sort of like scissor kick-ish from Souček. It was glorious.
Yeah.
I just wonder if somebody out there wants to sort of collaborate with me on an experiment where we start Cole Palmer. One team starts Cole Palmer every week, and I start Souček every week. Who's going to come out ahead? And I just feel like it's looking likely that Souček is going to beat Cole Palmer as much of a trend as Cole Palmer is.
I guess this is our Ian Malcolm episode, Brandon, because much like dinosaurs in life, Souček finds a way, doesn't he? He does. Always he finds a way.
Some chaos theory right there.
And I also think we could probably argue that he's the second best West Ham fantasy asset. I think we can now, and part of the reason here,
who's better than Souček?
Well, I guess I guess you'd have to, Ward Prowse would have a case, but I think part of the appeal of Souček is that you can bench him, right? Like sometimes with these players, if they get more expensive, it gets harder and harder to bench them, right? Because they're taking up a little more money. You probably don't have. You've got someone cheap, even cheaper, right? Like taking up space in your squad if you've got a 5.5 or 6 million mid. But with Souček, you can just bench him in the worst fixtures, and that's kind of fine. And whereas Cole Palmer is almost too good, and Ward Prowse is kind of the same way, where you feel obligated to start them no matter what. And then that's where the disappointment really creeps in.
Souček has 4 goals. Listen to that. Thomas Souček has 4 goals in his game week 13.
Sometimes he plays as a 10, he's done some good things. All right. We got one more take, Brendan, and then we're going to take a quick break. This is for Chelsea. This one's from you, and I like it. Okay. But I am going to make you own it. He said, those of you who think Reece James has ever been a good fantasy pick outside of a 4-week window 2 years ago live in the multiverse. Explain.
You do. Yeah. You're all living in a different version of Rick and Morty or whatever, because Reece James ain't it. Like, okay, he's a good player. I get that, and that's fine. There are a lot of good players out there, plenty, too many, honestly. It's like working in book publishing. Everyone's got like their novel in their desk drawer, but then they blame the publishing industry because they can't get it published. Well, listen, we've got too many books as it is. Reece James is a fantasy asset that should stay in your desk drawer and never come out and be put out on submission is what I'm thinking. And the fact that this club made him captain is just so hilarious to me. Like, what were they thinking? It's not a great choice.
I don't know why they made him captain either. It's like it's like when Thomas Vermaelen was it's like, just don't captain someone you don't trust to start most of your matches, right? Just It's like, make it a central midfielder of center back or somebody who's just going to who just doesn't get injured very often.
You want to bag on a defender. Thiago Silva had like the most hilarious blooper reel of all time.
I know. The day that he became the oldest, I think we got to cut him some slack because he officially became the oldest player that Chelsea had ever fielded when he started this weekend. Yeah. So we'll give him a little break because you and I are approaching the Thiago Silva zone ourselves. So we got to.
It's like the Wilford Brimley line.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's take a quick break, Brandon. We're going to do the final 10 teams after this. All right, Brandon, we're back. We're halfway through. One hot take for all 20 Premier League teams. We move now to the bottom half of the table. This take, Brandon, is you know what it is? It's so cold that it's a hot take in and of itself. How about that?
It's a club. Yeah, it's an anti-infinity, minus infinity, reverse infinity take. But it's a club that defies takes. It's Brentford. And I think Brentford, the only take that anyone could ever have about this club is seems fine. Everything seems fine.
I think the other take is that in his absence, we have realized just how important Rico Lewis is to this squad. It is shocking to me. I had no idea how much I needed Rico Lewis in my own life until Rico Lewis went away. And, arguably Ben Mee as well. I think Ben Mee is just one of those guys who just ticks along, and I think he's in his 30s now. And without Ben Mee, without Mee, they're just not as strong. They really could have kept a clean sheet yesterday. It would have been fitting had they done.
Yeah, I mean, God, it's just it's kind of infuriating as a Fulham supporter, like how tightly run that club is and how just kind of bulletproof the philosophy is, the transfer policy is, the management is. It's all going well for Brentford. We might not have cause to talk about them. I mean, it looks like maybe given how things have gone in the first half of the season, seems even more likely that they'd be willing to take big money in January and sell Ivan Toney to the likes of Chelsea or even Arsenal if they want to go that route. Because Brentford have to believe it's like we're fine. You'd rather have Toney than not, obviously, but that's it. It seems fine.
Here's a take for you. Here's a medium take for you, which is that I think that Neil Maupay is going to starting in place of Johan Wissa very soon. Now, Maupay's already got a couple starts here and there, but I feel like he really brings something to the table when he gets on the pitch. And I think that he's going to be coming in for Johan Wissa very soon, taking that spot.
That is probably the hottest take of the pod, and I appreciate you for it.
I mean, Wissa has done basically nothing. He had those nice first 2 weeks, and then
he's crazy. He's vanished. Yeah. He has vanished, and I thought they were going to be a good 1-2, and Bomo and Wissa. And at least Maupay can move about the pitch, so long as you're not counting on Maupay to finish.
We won't be having him in fantasy, but I do think he'll be starting.
Okay.
All right. Wolves, Brandon. Again, we found another way to work Ange Postecoglou into the podcast, and our hot take on Wolves is that Gary O'Neill is the real Ange. He did it at
Y'all
Bournemouth.
should have been. Y'all should have been paying attention. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wormholes, multiverses. Gary, in some multiverse out there, Gary O'Neill is receiving all the accolades that Postecoglou has when he arrived in North London. Now, obviously, we're taking the mick a little bit here. And again, I want to, the Spurs fans. The Spurs fans are always get their dander up, and we are fans. And good things have happened and will continue to. But Gary O'Neill just done absolutely dirty by Bournemouth, and many, many failings to Bournemouth for what they've done to various managers throughout the years. I think Gary O'Neill's got the stuff, and Wolves look great because of him.
I think so too. And I kind of wish he would I think you're right about the caught you napping. I wish he would look at the camera like Alan Pardew style every now and then and just whisper that, whisper caught you napping and maybe wink a little bit afterwards or something like that. Bonus hot take is that Hwang is good. Fun player to watch. I like him. I'm rooting for him. I want him to do well. It's fun to say. He's this year's Joe Linton is what he is, Brandon. The kind of forward who's found a home in the kind of attacking midfielder, central midfielder zone. And
how many goals do you think Hwang is going to score against Fulham on Monday?
0. I think that he's going to.
He's going to look great, but it's going to come out empty-handed.
Yeah, he's going to give away the ball in the defensive zone, and it's going to be taken away by Jedi Robinson. I don't know how that one's going to work out. I'm very
not
curious.
The Wangs you're looking for.
Exactly. All right, moving on to Crystal Palace. By the way, just Wolves in general, much more fun to watch this year. I think O'Neill is to thank for that. I mean, again, with fantasy or not, if you take fantasy seriously, you end up watching basically everybody from time to time, right? They all kind of pop up on your screen various times. Wolves, I feel like were kind of like my least favorite team to watch last season, and this year they're bringing a lot more fun to the table, so I'm happy about that.
MFFA. All right, well, this brings us to Crystal Palace, and here we have, Josh, the hot take. Recently returned from injury, Michael Olise. What could we say about this man? Well, the take is he will be the highest scoring Palace player from game weeks 14 to game week 20. How do you like that? Does this have anything to do with Abrizio Eze being out with an injury after this weekend?
It's certainly a factor. I mean, Eze looked spectacular, but I thought, we saw Olise come on in person, played the final 23 minutes of the Everton match. I thought he played very well in that match in his
great player.
limited time. Came out in the Luton match, picked up a goal and 3 bonus points, played all 90 minutes. It's cheap too, 5.8 million. So again, if you're looking for a slightly under the radar option, now granted, I don't really recommend it because they've got a pretty tough run coming up. Next 2 are okay, but then Liverpool, Man City, Brighton, and Chelsea. But still, I think for a team that might be struggling to score a little bit, especially if Eze is out for an extended period of time, I do think that Olise is going to be involved in the goals, and he's going to end up as the top scoring player. I think, do we say midfielder player or all? Yeah, I think he's just the top scoring Palace player just across the board. I think that when you factor in,
well, they don't keep clean sheets anymore, Josh, so that's fine.
Yeah, I know the Gahey thing has really not worked out, and Anderson too. I mean, Anderson is it's just
washed.
ridiculous. Yeah, he went from 4.5 to 5.2 million, and that is crazy for like a center back. It's
provoked a Joker-esque laugh from me there.
It's great. Yeah. My under 1 XG, under 1 XA on the season. 9 bonus, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, that one's I think now is the time to sell high with Anderson, because we're going to see him drop all the way back down to 4.5 or so by the time the season's over. All right. Forest, Brandon. We have we're trying to turn this one into an FPL take, and the first takeaway is that the squad is simply too big to have a take. Okay, how do you have a take on 40 to 50 different players, Brandon? I don't know, but the the translation is stay away from the whole team. The whole squad, Brandon, is a full on. Not a full on stay away this season. I do not expect to have I guess I do have. No, I don't even have Turner anymore. Right. So Turner, although Turner, what's going on with him? Is he I thought he was injured, but now he's just maybe dropped. Now
he's totally dropped. Yeah.
Yeah. Odysseus now starts for him.
Wow. That's a very Greek sort of, what am I thinking of? The you want to gouge out your father's
Odysseus?
eyes. Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
exactly. Oh, you're thinking of Oedipus.
Oedipus. Yeah, Oedipus is where my brain immediately went instead of the literal Odysseus. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, Forest is one of the classic teams where team who you want to be FPL relevant because you kind of begrudgingly respect them if you're a neutral. But you just can't. There's just too much going on there.
I know. And
somebody brings this dish to Thanksgiving, and there's too much crap in it, and you're just kind of like, I'll pass. Or maybe you put a little bit of Forest on the side of your plate and pretend to pick at it.
I forgot, by the way, that I actually have a Forest player on my squad right now. Kellen Hudson, he's been injured for so long that I've kind of forgotten about him. They host Everton in game week 14, so in theory, I could play him. I don't know who I'd play him over. Nobody, I guess. But he is moving to the first bench spot, Brandon, which has been a great spot for players to be. You had 7 from Lascelles last week. You had 15 from Samikas the week before that. Great stuff. I think 5 from Shar the week before that. So if you were in my first bench spot, you are doing really well at the moment, Brandon.
Gold dust.
Something to keep in mind. All right, let's move on to, there's just not a lot to say with Forest, right? Because it's, I guess it's not really a hot take, but I do enjoy watching Gibbs White play. Like I like him. I don't think I'd own him in fantasy, but I do
Yeah,
enjoy
that
watching
would
him
be
play.
the hot take of any that good Gibbs White is on the fantasy radar. That's just good scouting as a fantasy manager.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Do you know he had 12 assists last season? It's more than I realized. 12
do know.
assists from now you do. Now you do. Now knowing is half the battle. All right, Brandon, Fulham, I let you do the take for this one, so let's hear it. What is your hot take for Fulham?
Fulham will be the lowest scoring team in the second half of the season. They don't have an actual striker. The strikers they do have are bad at this time, as of this writing. They're going to struggle to score, and I think even the likes of Burnley and the bottom feeders are going to outscore Fulham. Fulham will be fine. I don't think they're in like it's going to be tense. It's going to be squeaky bum time for Fulham supporters. Ultimately, they'll ride it out, but they're just not going to score any goals the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's a pretty. Just like I thought Vicario might have a chance to be the guy.
Vinicius?
I know I'm much higher. Or Vinicius. No, actually, I thought Vicario. I thought he would play.
I think he's such a good goalkeeper. Why not put him up front for Fulham?
Why not make him a forward? Exactly.
I get
exactly.
that.
It's like my Benteke should have been a center back argument that I was advocating for many years. I think that that's a grim take. But you are a supporter, which means you're allowed to be as depressed as you want about
That's
them.
the way it goes.
They should still be fine. Like they might even finish top half of the table, but maybe not top half anymore if they can't score a goal. I guess that's really the problem there. All right. They do get a little grimmer. I guess it should go bottom of the table here, right, Brandon? We're trying to find the brightness. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Actually, in fact, we've got one here. Bournemouth. Dominic Solanke, despite the game week 13 blank, is still an excellent fantasy asset and a good Alvarez replacement.
Yeah, their fixtures: Villa at home in game week 14, followed by Brighton, Sheffield United, Aston Villa. I'm sorry, I'm reading Brentford's. Aston Villa. Let me hit the reset. Aston Villa at home in game week 14 for Dominic Solanke, followed by Palace, Manchester United. Guess who they play in game week 17, Josh?
It's got to be Luton Town.
It's Luton Town.
Forest,
Fulham. That's the run, 17-18 for Big Dom. Luton, Forest, and Fulham. So I agree with this take. I think Dom continues to be a good pick. And if you're feeling like you were dodging points this weekend, even though Bournemouth scored 3, just stick with it. It's the way it always goes, right? Fantasy points come to the good players in time.
And I think, to his credit again, and I don't mean to be like Mr. XG on today's pod, but 0.62 XG for Solanke in that Sheffield match. So points to a lot of involvement and some real chances for him. So and I think you kind of see that across the board. I mean, he has 6 goals and 5.9 XG in the season. So it's been a very he has basically performed as expected, right? This is what you're going to get from him. Like he's basically he's 6.5 and he's going to score a goal like almost every other match. Like that's a pretty good return for that price. It's an excellent return, in fact, for that price.
All right. Speaking of dropping G's, as we were minutes ago, Luton Town.
Luton Town.
Hot take here, Josh, is Luton just out of the relegation zone might be these takes are emphatic and definitive. Luton are the best promoted team. Why is this fantasy relevant for us, Josh?
Well, it's fantasy relevant because we have been looking to their fixtures as an opportunity to possibly captain or bring in players for them, when in fact, of the 3 promoted teams, they're probably at this point the one who is most likely to give the team that they're playing trouble, right? Because I think the biggest thing is just that Luton can score. Like they are a team that is capable of scoring some goals, and I think that is. I don't know. They've outscored Sheffield and Burnley so far in the season. They've, who else have they outscored, Brandon? They've outscored Fulham. Fulham is actually tied with Burnley for bottom of the table. So, they are, for a team that we've sort of, had some chuckles at over the season so far, Brandon. I mean, no, we're not chuckling at them exactly. They have supporters and they're they're worthy promoted club, just like, they didn't like fluke their way there.
Good natured.
Yeah, it's good natured, but they have 5 points from 15, which I think is really not bad considering how they started the season. There was some talk at the beginning about whether they were like the worst ever promoted club, and it looks like they're going to be fine. I mean, they're probably still going to go down, but like it looks like they may finish with 27 points or something like that, right? Just like a totally they're at 9 points through 13, right? So that would be just under 27 if you looked at it through a full season. So that would be like I think a respectable, kind of like Huddersfield Town, their second year, right? They went down, but it was a nice little 2-year run for Huddersfield. Nobody nobody could say they didn't like put in a good effort when they were up. So Brandon, that brings us to the next team though, Sheffield United. The flip side, I think, here of the Luton debate, which is that Sheffield United are the worst promoted team. Take this into consideration when doing your FPL planning. So again, I think we're all hung up on how fun it is to say Luton Town, that we are looking at their fixtures, and maybe Sheffield United is not quite at the top of our kind of planning list as they should be, right? So let's see, Sheffield play away to Burnley. Okay, that's really not helpful. But then they play Liverpool in 15. So Mo Salah, maybe possible captaincy shot, especially with so you have Salah at Sheffield versus Holland at Aston Villa. I think that you can make a strong case there that is a week.
I'm captaining Salah.
When you would look at Salah for that one. I think so too. Yeah. And I think again we're sort of, we've been very Luton focused, but Sheffield United are really a team that we should be kind of targeting, I think, a little bit more. And again, it sort of shows out in the in the X, I mean, not even X, just the actual goals conceded, which is 34 for Sheffield United, which is far and away the most. You have Burnley at 32, and then nobody else is even in the 30s in terms of how many goals they've allowed so far this season. So Sheffield are just absolutely shipping goals at the moment, and so that's definitely something to keep in mind with your planning.
They bad. Now Everton. Everton are up next.
Yeah, poor Everton.
Yeah.
Should not be in 19th, but here they are.
I mean, obviously they're in 19th because of the 10 points deduction they were made to take by the Football Association because of some dirty deeds behind the scene with financial stuff. But the hot take here is that Everton will be safe. They are not going down. And I think even if this, the suspicion would be after appeals that this points deduction will be reduced to maybe 8, maybe 6 points or so on. I mean, I suspect that the FA is just trying to use Everton as a case study to see how this all goes down amongst the general public before they really throw the book at the likes of Chelsea and Manchester City. So this is all just like very fascinating. But even though Everton got waxed at home, no one really predicted a 3-0 defeat to Manchester United. But I think that they're good. Speaking of the match against Manchester United this weekend, 24 shots by Everton.
Yeah.
6 of those. You would like to see more than 6 of 24 shots on target, but still, they were hot to trot against Manchester
6
United.
Isn't bad, though, by their standards. I feel like 6 is pretty good. Yeah.
But it's nearly a 3xG, and they had no goals to show for it, but what that shows is they're just kind of still coming together as an attacking unit. And we saw them live at Selhurst Park, and they beat Palace 3-2 and just looked very cohesive. So I think Dyche will get them over the line here. Any other takes on Everton?
No, I mean, I guess like them getting dug 10 points. I mean, it's like, I think that's like a totally reasonable thing within the. I actually am someone who would like to see financial fair play get enforced. I think it's just hard not to see it within the context of Man City's lack of a deduction so far, right? And so it sort of feels like maybe one team is like lawyered up better than the other or something like that. Or maybe there's just less paperwork to sort through with Everton. I don't really know. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with Man City if and when they get some kind of deduction. So anyway, that's not, well, it's relevant for Everton, which is that I think they'll stay up. I don't think that maybe that's not exactly the hottest take, but I do think that they'll stay up this season. So Brandon, that leaves us with our 20th team. And we're ending this on a slight note of optimism here, Brandon, which is that we both think this. We speak as one voice here in the Always Dream podcast, that Burnley are one good January transfer window away from challenging to stay up this season.
Yeah, the January transfer window notoriously like a hard time to get like a transformative signing over the line, but Burnley are kind of starting from nothing. And I think Company has got just look at what he did in the championship last season. There's something there, and if they can get one sort of miracle signing, and we're
Yep.
not talking about like you need to sign Neymar or something like that. It
Yep.
could just be somebody who we've not heard of or not been paying attention to who comes up from the championship or the like. But there should be something at Burnley that could be unlocked. And I think we could see it.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, do you think Company will be there? Like, on January 1st, is Company going to be? Because that'll be like what, seven matches from now. Like, does he last to January 1st? That is really the big question.
I mean, what he's kind of going down the Patrick Vieira route, managerially speaking now, where you're like, oh, okay, good ideas. You've made it work to some degree, and it's just not going to produce any money for this club in the Premier League. So you gotta go. I don't. I hope that Company is not then replaced by another Dyche-esque figure.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If Dyche was still without a job, you could see him sort of Hodgson style, just going into that role. But it does feel like there's enough talent here for them to at least compete to maybe fight and stay out of, like at least you could see them being 17th place in April, right? Like it still feels like they're most likely going to go down, but there's like a version of this team where you could see them kind of step up a little bit. And, maybe it starts, Brandon, with your boy, Nathan Redmond. Now, granted, he only has 88 minutes in the season, but I know you've been talking to some of your people. You think that Nate Redmond is going to start to explode in the next few weeks.
Yeah, there's a grassroots sort of effort happening amongst my people, as you mentioned, and we'll see. Crew. I don't want to talk too much about it here on this podcast,
you want to talk about
but
school.
If you want to just look out on my Redmond cast for more details, please do.
Okay, that sounds good. And and then obviously I'm a huge Benson head as well, and so I think that once we get more minutes from Benson, granted he's only played 65 minutes in the season. Brennan hasn't played since 4 minutes in game week 6, but I think that Benson could still be the man.
Now, are you talking about, is that like the Robert Guillaume TV show from the 80s, Benson?
It is like Benson. Yeah, it's the same guy, actually, Brennan. They say there's no second acts in life, but there is for Benson. He's 70 years old, but he's still cooking. He still cooks, Brandon. All right, well, those are your 20 hot takes. Game week 14 kicks off on Saturday. No early match on Saturday. It kicks off there's a late match that day, though, which kind of, Newcastle Man United as the 3 p.m. US, 8 p.m. UK. That should be a fun one. A match to look forward to for sure. And captain options, I think you and I both are leaning towards Man City, especially with Spurs being down a couple of center backs. I think we probably saw that a little bit today with the way Watkins split the defense when he scored that second goal for Villa. And so I think it feels like a fairly straightforward captain option this week. I could see somebody maybe trying to make a case for someone like Saka at home to Wolves. I think that's fine. I just don't like it as much as, or I guess Isak would also be another consideration. But again, Man United are, I don't know. I mean, conceding 3 XG, that's pretty tough. So I don't know. We'll see. I think Isak is going to be in the goals.
I like Isak. I think Newcastle are going to slaughter Manchester United, and it's well due for United, the form team. Obviously, Salah has to be in the discussion. Home Anfield, against any opponent, but against Fulham, where you've got a sloppy center back pairing with Tim Ream and probably Calvin Bassey, and I think it's going to be another similar week to this week where people are kind of split between Salah and Haaland for the sort of obvious on paper choice. Yeah, I'll be Haaland for sure.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Haaland as well. It will be Salah Vice for me, so I think we're probably going to be in the same spot there. I mean, I do want to be a little more bold with my transfers, but I don't really love getting bold with my captaincy decisions in general, unless it's like just the right week to do it. So Yeah, and so I think we talked about transfer decision at the top of the pod, so let's skip that part. X dog in him, we got a little let down. We thought Everton would have that dog in them, and granted they did with shot wise and XG wise, but
Yeah.
not score wise or FPL wise. So I think we should go a little off the board here with the XDIH. Okay, how about this? Does the Burnley comeback start this weekend, Brandon? We were big up in Burnley a little bit with our hot takes here. Does Nathan Redmond get some minutes for Burnley? Does he score a late? Does he come on late and score a game winner for Sheffield United? I'm predicting Nathan Redmond and Burnley in general have that dog in them this weekend.
I want to see Nathan Redmond at the end of this match get the drumstick, a la John Madden at the end of the Thanksgiving football match, and just Nathan Redmond thanking all of his fans and supporters, including me among them, while he takes a big honking bite out of that drumstick.
Did you have an XDIH for yourself?
I'll be a little more earnest with my DAH pick. I think Son has the makings of a great game week against City.
Okay.
City just they get away with having a horrible defense, and numbers keep putting City's defense, and who am I to argue with these numbers?
There's no good
Josh,
defenses this year. There's no good. There's not a single one. Let's just leave it.
I think a goal is the floor for Son this week, and I think after getting caught so many times offside, not necessarily Son, but the people providing the passes to Son.
Yeah,
against Villa, he's going to want to rectify that, and what better way to do it than at the Etihad? So I love Son as a pick.
That's a good pick. My pick was pretty lame, I have to admit. I hadn't really thought it through. How about Anthony Gordon? Anthony Gordon keeping the run going in the Man United match. Anthony Gordon to score or assist, Brandon. That's my XDIH / gambling pick of the week. All right, Brandon. If you're only going to watch one match this weekend, what match should that be?
I feel like every time I gravitate toward Chelsea with this question, mostly because Chelsea are like the great riddle of this Premier League season. You don't know what team you're ever going to get.
Yeah,
but then you have them in game week 14 up against another mercurial side in Brighton. And I think the atmosphere that we experienced at the Bridge when Chelsea hosted City 2 weeks ago was just incredible. The Bridge is great. Yeah. I think the fans there will bring the hot takes themselves. I think this is going to be a good one.
Mercury Rising, Brandon. A great movie just turned into a great matchup this weekend. I think that's a great pick. It's actually sort of similar to game week 13, honestly. A lot of interesting matches. I think Man City Spurs obviously should be a really interesting and hopefully very open match. I'd say the matches are a little better on Sunday than Saturday, although Newcastle Man United to close things out. This feels like a week where you could, if you had to skip all of Saturday until the end, I think you're probably okay there. Forest, Everton, Burnley, Sheffield, Brentford, Luton Town, even Arsenal Wolves. I don't really see a lot of excitement among those matches. So if you need to bank some family time for some Premier League later, I would do that on Saturday. All right, Brendan, that's your pod. Thank you to everyone who supports the podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's. We'll be back on Thursday with a Patreon exclusive podcast. So if you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. If you aren't currently able to support the pod or just don't want to, totally understand that. You can also give us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Play, whatever you listen to podcasts. It really is genuinely helpful. I know it's the kind of pitch that you hear often, but if you have blocked it out the first 500 times we've said it, listen this time and pop on and give us a quick review. It's really helpful for us helping to get new people to find the podcast. Brendan, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Yeah, and I'll write the review for all those people right now. Just give us 5 stars, and the review is, my hot take is Always Cheating is the best FPL podcast. There you go.
Leave it at that.
Done.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, as always, to our producers, Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, our buddy Chris Howell, Babas Kuhn, James Holland, Dave Wagner-Lodahl, Nick Wright, Lazarus Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Buffalo Wild Wings, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Volker, Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, Shalin F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Heath Cram, Thomas Tislov, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Dan Parsons, James C., Matthew Skinner, Fro Jacobson, Brennan, Daniel Hart, Lolly, Ben Coombs, and our newest producer, Eric Kite. Eric, your pint glass is on its way all the way to New Zealand. Flight of the Conchords rules, as do everyone who are listening to the Always Cheating podcast at this point. Josh, I'll see you next week. Good luck.
Sounds good. See you next week. Bye.